there'd be a lot of poop in my pants. I've seen a 6-foot alligator go swinging through the air and slam into a tree.
These guys are the scientists of the supernatural, lecturers leaving lessons for inquiring laymen. They are applying the scientific method to a world that baffles science. They are the cryptids of the corn.
But who else has big black wings and red eyes?
Batman.
Well, Mothman.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
A great white shark was stolen.
Oh, someone stole a shark?
I got stuff for you don't even know about.
She's a witch. She turned me into a newt.
Who knows? Anything could be possible.
It's really big abduction vibes.
Holy moly.
It sounds like you were abducted.
And it just stood up. I mean, it just like kept going and going. And she goes, what the?
Hello, and welcome back to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am the great and powerful Mystery.
And I am just Jay today.
Ooh, just Jay.
Yeah.
So this is our first official interview on the page for Season 3.
Ooh, and of 2023.
And we're starting off with a banger. This guy is an active Bigfoot researcher, author, all kinds of cool stuff, clothing lines. We're going to talk about it all tonight. Jay, would you please introduce our guest?
We are joined today by Bigfoot researcher Rick Reles. Say hi, Rick.
Hi, guys. Hi, Jay. How are you? Justin, nice to be here. Glad to be on Cryptids of the Corn, but looking forward to this.
Thank you for coming on. I know it took a while to get it all set up, but we are very excited for it.
Mm-hmm.
I am too. I see you guys at all the shows and everything all
Yeah.
the time when I'm there. Sometimes I speak at these shows, and then I'm there for IKnowSquatch. That's a business I own. I'm part of. And selling merchandise and stuff. And you guys are always great to talk with, and you guys get a lot of activity at the show, so do I. And it's nice we cross paths. We get a chance to share some notes now.
Yeah. So speaking of which, why don't you give out all your shout outs to all of the stuff people, and I'll have links below everybody like I always do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know Squatch, your books and stuff, and we're going to get into that stuff here in a bit, but yeah, just whatever anybody can buy.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the PR for IKnowSquatch, but you can see IKnowSquatch on. You can find us. We have an Etsy store. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Instagram. So IKnowSquatch. You just look that up. You'll find us. Lots of followers. We're always posting new content. And always trying to stay relevant. Anytime we're out do expeditions, we're at shows, we post about that. So look up IKnowSquatch, Etsy. We're always adding new merchandise, and our whole thing at IKnowSquatch is we do all original artwork. Any of the stuff that we have, I'm going to model real quick, but you can see this shirt here with the whoop on it.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So we own that. So whoop in this space. Whoop is something Bigfoot say.
Oh yeah.
When they communicate, and I've heard that many times. But we own that. That's part of IKnowSquatch. We trademark all of our own stuff, and we do our own original artwork. We got we started this, me and my partner Hans. We have an LLC out of Wisconsin, and we just got tired of looking at the same old two-dimensional black silhouette of Bigfoot kind of thing. So, and we did our own, and we tried to really represent how Sasquatch is interacted with. So, hunters will often report seeing one, peeking around a tree, or people will see one moving, and the famous film of Patty that you see that's out there with Kimlin, it's moving. So we wanted to represent how it moves and what people say about it. And that's just the same old clip, artwork that's out there. So that's what motivated us. And then really Hans and I were on an expedition up in UP, Michigan years ago, and we had activity and came away saying, we know it. There's a lot of, I believe what people say, and in this space, you see it all the time, but we know it's real. I'm a BFRO investigator too.
Yes.
And I've been investigating actively for 6-7 years, 3 different states. Well, more than that. But I help organize expeditions, get out. So I talk to witnesses about what they report, and I could talk a little about that today too. And then I got It's out in 4th edition. We'll talk about that a little bit. You can get it in the Etsy store. But I have a field guide that you can take. It's made this size. It's in the 4th edition, like I said, so you can stick it in your backpack, take it out in the woods. But if you're out in the woods and you see a stick structure or something like that, it's in an area maybe there's activity. I help you identify it, and I have all the different types inside the book. And I've got, instead of just sketches, I've got actual pictures of these things taken from out in the woods. So I know you guys like the book. I appreciate that. I'm glad to talk a little bit about some of that today too. But I know Squatch, and I'm a BFRO investigator. Oh, and one other thing I'm going to plug as long as I got you. You see the guitar on the wall behind me, but I'm a musician, and I gig all the time. And I grew up a drummer, and I played acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass, all kinds of things for years. But I go by Just Rick. So if people look up Just Rick or Just Rick Live Music on Facebook and Instagram, you'll find me. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Prime Music, iHeartRadio, Apple, anywhere. And one of the songs I put out in November of last year is Wood Booger Walk.
Wood Booger Walk.
Mm-hmm.
So you look that up, because I've been recording and putting music out for years, all original stuff and that. But if you look up Wood Booger Walk, you give that a check. It's a good swampy rock and blues tune, and it's about Bigfoot. And I hope you all like that. So any listeners out there that subscribe, look up Wood Booger Walk. If I didn't give you guys some stickers for that, I'll send some to you.
Awesome.
I actually listened to that at CryptidCon when we were down there.
Yep.
Yep.
I was actually walking with one of the people that were with us and looking for the schedule for the speakers, and I seen the little QR code, and I thought it was the schedule, so I hurried up and clicked on it, brought it up on my phone, then it brought up to Spotify. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I found Wood Booger Walk, and I listened to it, and I liked it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a rock and blues tune too. I mean, it goes. I wanted it to sound like Bigfoot going through the woods. But it's got a lot of it's what folks took. I didn't know. It's on TikTok. I got to keep track of it. It was up to like 15 or 20,000 hits with people on TikTok with it, and they're playing with it, and they're doing videos with it. A Bigfoot walking through the back.
That's awesome.
It's great.
And I'll have all the links for all that below, everybody at home. So you can go. I'll have a whole little section that just says Rick's links, and you can go through and pick whatever one you want. Oh yeah, but you brought up the BFRO investigator and stuff. I think a lot of people that are kind of just interested in this field don't really understand what that means, per se. We hear the word, we're into this stuff, so we have a better idea. But for the people that are listening at home and stuff that are just interested, they hear the word BFRO a lot, but maybe not know what that means to be an investigator. So I'd love if you could kind of explain that to us.
Yeah, sure. It's a good question, Justin. So the folks that have watched, Finding Bigfoot, you heard BFRO referenced a lot. Matt Moneymaker, who was of the 4 people on Finding Bigfoot, he really got that started. So he put together a database and a place you could report, witness could report anywhere across U.S. I think it goes into Canada too. I have to look. But you can go to BFRO.net and report an encounter or an experience. And there's a form you can fill out. So if someone, just hypothetically, someone sees one maybe in the woods near their farm, or they're out on a hike and had an experience that they think may be Bigfoot, they can describe it and they can send it in to BFRO. And then I have to look, but I think it's about 250 investigators around the country. And these people are, so any state may have 2 or 3 of them, but people like me will then contact them and volunteer to interview them, talk through their encounter, their witness report. And we try to vet it out and make sure, only the best ones and the legitimate ones get reported. And then sometimes, frankly, people's imagination runs away with them sometimes. And you have to, have a recording of something, and I have to tell them, I know that's a fox, or it's a wolf, or that sort of thing. But sometimes, they're real, and you go on out and people have evidence. I get out on properties and I can see, there's footprints that can be cast, or there's a tree that was pushed down. I had someone just the other day, and 'cause I live in Western North Carolina, But I had someone just the other day in North Central North Carolina had pictures of the prints right through the snow, sent me the trackway of this thing walking, and the prints are almost 6 feet apart in a straight line. And the darn things have been knocking on the basement door in the house, so but they had multiple encounters. She had evidence. I mean, level-headed person sent me the evidence in the picture. So that's what we like. We would call that a Class B encounter. So the BFRO lists them A, B, and C. A being a visual sighting, where I'm looking like I'm looking at you guys. But that's what we do at BFRO. We do investigate. And if you go to BFRO.net, you can also see there are expeditions around the country, and 8 or 10 of them a year at different places. I'm helping organize one in the spring of this year. It'll be in Eastern Tennessee, and I'm working with another BFRO investigator out of Chattanooga, Lori Wade, and she and I are interviewing people to go on that expedition now. So I help organize them, and we take people out in the woods for 3 nights, 4 days, and go out on night hikes and areas where these things have been active. And sometimes we have encounters, sometimes we don't. But sometimes we do.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And thank you for explaining that, because I just feel like it gets the word, like we said earlier, the word gets thrown around a lot, and I just don't think it ever gets really said. Conferences and stuff, BFRO gets used a lot. Like you said, the TV, Finding Bigfoot, BFRO, but they don't really ever explain it. So it's just kind of this word in the background. So thank you for doing that, because that's amazing. I'm so excited. It just blows my mind that you guys get to go out and do this stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. I'm good. I had I think we talked about it before. Yeah, I had my encounter a long time ago. I know they're real. Yeah. I've seen one. I'm good. Mm-hmm. It's like, I got my proof. Well, I don't need any more.
I'm still on board. Well, I know I want to join one of these. I want to join a BFRO, BFRO, if I say it right.
BFRO.
I want to join in on one of those night, whatever, 4 days, 3 nights kind of journeys.
Jay would let you slather him in barbecue sauce, in ape pheromone.
Yeah. Hang them upside down from a tree.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and you guys just all sit back and watch what happens.
We'll see if the mountain lions don't get you.
We've run into them before, actually. So, again, for any of your folks who are listening, BFRO.net, you can look in the county you live in, in the state. Justin, Jay, go take a look at the counties you live in, and you'll see vetted out witness reports that have been investigated, because that's the only ones that get published.
Right.
And then you can take a look, you can read up on the activity. And it's funny, too. I mean, I love the database, which is why I got involved in it. I wanted to see, where there's activity and why. And you learn things about these things. So, one of the things I learned is where there's a lot of water and waterfalls in an area that, they're there. You get a lot of reports. So it's not a random thing. It's not like you're just randomly throwing darts on a map. I mean, these things cluster, and they're in certain areas, and you see that. That's the beauty of the database that we have for this. So, but yeah, take a look online, Jay, if you're interested. And I know you got an active group in Ohio and up in that part of the world. Take a look around and see. I'd encourage you to go on out on one and see, because it's not a bunch of thrill seekers.
No.
We're not, no, we're not, it's very organized. It's sort of like between science camp and Boy Scouts or military, somewhere in there. And, we want to make sure people are safe and get them to a place. And we've already scouted out the trails and the areas. We'll use a base camp. A lot of times it's private. Sometimes it's in a, national park, but then we're out on trails, and we're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night kind of thing. And sometimes these things come around.
That's awesome. Speaking of which, are there any encounters or anything you can share from these, just that kind of stuff that you could tell us?
Well, yeah, I mean, so what got me into this? I mean, again, I'm not a thrill seeker. I just, I was driving across northern Wisconsin with an associate back in 2010, and right before we saw one of these things. Wow. I didn't know what that guy was seeing at the time, but I can still see it. It was big and 8 foot and kind of a reddish brown hair, and watched it go across 2 lanes of. It was a rural road, but rural highway, if you will. Nobody really on the road. It was kind of light rain and dusky, right around dusk, November. And I saw this thing come across the two oncoming lanes, grass median, and then lanes in front of me, and then go over a 5.5-foot fence like a hurdle. And I didn't know what I thought it was a moose, but I kept seeing it in my head. I could still see the bipedal, like the two legs. It was fast. So, the guy I was with, he kind of said, that wasn't it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even think Bigfoot. I was thinking elk or moose. I didn't know what, But again, BFRO, I started looking and I found other reports not far from there and similar descriptions. I was like, my God, a Bigfoot, I couldn't believe it. So, I dove into it, did a lot of online research and found expeditions, started to go out on my own and started to look into this thing. Had a research area that I went into regularly in Wisconsin. I was in there every week, had activity there, and fast forward now, I've been on, 36, 40 maybe expeditions from British Columbia to Florida. And, I've seen these things. I've had 3 Class A sightings I could reference and, I've talked about with other groups and on podcasts, but, I've seen these things. I've smelled them. I've recorded them. I've cast their footprints. I've had rocks thrown at me by these things, trees pushed over, been zapped, made feel uncomfortable around them. I've seen their stick structures. I've got loads of pictures of that, put a book together on it. I've seen, and I've talked to loads of witnesses about these and investigated them. Some are fast, some are just, you wouldn't believe. I had a fly fisherman in northern Wisconsin was going into an area to fly fish and saw about a 4.5-foot black bipedal thing run across a trail in front of him, dive like an Olympic diver into a river, So, some of the things you wind up talking to people about are amazing, and then when they're very detailed and very composed and, they just don't know what they saw, but they're describing it. And you see similarities, which is fascinating. I haven't done this for 12 years. I see behavioral similarities, descriptive similarities. And these things, even stick structures, I see the same ones categorically, same types from, British Columbia, I mentioned before, northwestern part of the U.S. down through Florida and the east. They build the same type of things. So when you see similarities and stories that, corroborate over time, it's all evidence, and it's still, I don't have all the answers to it. I'm still fascinated with it from a research standpoint, and more, and I've had things around these I can't explain too, and I've had people relate things that they've seen, heard, felt around these that are paranormal and they can't explain. So, I don't know everything about what this is, but I'm still trying to research it and learn.
Awesome. Yeah. Could you tell us more about, you said you felt zapped. You felt the zap once. I would love just if you could describe that, because I don't know anybody that's ever felt it. We've had people on, so I had mine, I didn't see nothing. Like, I seen him, but I didn't feel that. But so many people feel that. And I always wonder what it is, if it's infrasound, if it's something else. I don't know.
Yeah. So first thing we have to do is just acknowledge that it happens. Because there is a whole school of Bigfoot research that now, any of that stuff's not happening. I'm here to tell you it does happen. Not every time and et cetera. But, if the Bigfoots have an ability to make humans feel uncomfortable because we happen to, mosey into an area they are, and they're going to use it, they're going to use it. Mm-hmm. I've had hunters related to me, and and inevitably you get into the story to talk to them, and they're hunting on some land that wasn't hunted on for 10 years or 5 years, and they got back in there this deer season and, set up a few of them right on, and all they heard something, felt something, and then they felt fight or flight, and they had to get out of there. They heard the tree being pushed over and knocks, and, they ran out of there and never felt, nauseated, or they felt, something heavy on them, I'm like, yeah, okay. So, they got zapped. They got that feeling. And if the Bigfoots can do that and repel you from an area that they're resident, they're going to do it. So back to your question, what have I felt? It wasn't once. I felt it a few times when I've been out there. Once it felt, and I was with a number of people, we walked into like a wall. They were around, it was just pitch black, but it felt like electricity once, almost like you stuck you took and stuck a screwdriver in a light socket. Anybody's been stupid enough, or at any point has done something like that. You know what it feels like. There's a tingling all over, and it was like that once. A couple other times I've had it feel like once in Virginia, once in Wisconsin, I can recall where it felt like a weight, like a huge, heavy weight being put on me. You know, like you couldn't move. It just felt like you had to get out of there. It always is accompanied by the fight or flight thing. Like I got I panic. I got to get out of here. It's effective that way when they do it. And I don't know if it's infrasound. You mentioned that. It may be. Infrasound is used to dispel crowds, crowd control. I think in military crowd control uses that sort of thing. You can measure. You can see the low frequency, on an audiograph. So you can, but maybe it's that. I don't know what it is, but whatever, they can do it. And if they want to do it, they'll do it. Conversely, there's times where they, I don't know, want to play, want to interact, and toss small pebbles out at you. Or, they whistle and you whistle back, and they whistle. Sometimes it's like that. Other times, they don't want you around. They push trees over, throw rocks. Everybody gets uncomfortable, heebie-jeebies. Let's get out of here. So you just never know what you're going to get. When they're.
That's awesome. And we talked about infrasound a couple different times with other animals that can use it. I don't know if you've ever seen the tiger experiment with infrasound, but literally they found out some of the tigers in Asia use it to stun deer so they can get right up on them. But they did it with this guy in a zoo. Remember I showed you that video? Mm-hmm. And he goes in, and this tiger is in heat, so it's all agitated, and it hits him. And he just starts crying, and he's like, he's on two different cages. It can't get to it, but it's like it hits that primitive side of your brain, like the fight or flight. It's like, I got to get out of here.
Yep.
This thing's going to eat me.
Yep.
I got to get out.
Right.
But it's definitely an effective way if they want to get you moving, to get you moving.
Yeah, I've heard. It's funny. I've heard about that the tiger experiment and all that. So I went to the Tampa Zoo about a year or so ago, and I specifically wanted to hear the tiger thing. I was hanging around there. I was at my way, and we were there about an hour and a half. All of a sudden, the tiger. And I wasn't at the tiger area at this time, but we heard this noise, and I mean it reverberates throughout the zoo. And I'm like, "That's the tiger. Let's go." So we got over that way, and the tiger was making these growling, low throttling noises. And I talked to one of the attendants at the zoo, and I said, how can it be that loud and that powerful? And they said, that's nothing. It's not even really acting up today. But when it does it, all the animals in the zoo are on like high alert. When it does that, it really, this low throttling, it's like everything stops. And, it was amazing to me. So, I know what you're talking about. It was reverberating in my chest. It was it's so powerful. I don't know how they do that, but if infrasound comes from that, it's got to be effective.
Oh yeah, we did the whole thing with elephants too. There was a suicide village from elephants actually causing suicide rates to go up from them using infrasound to communicate, and they just too close to the village, and it caused depression and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. But so you've had a little bit different, but you've had stuff thrown at you and stuff like that. We've had a couple guests on that have experienced that, but I always love hearing it because I personally always say, if they want to hit you, they will hit you. If they're not hitting you, they're probably playing with you.
Or, just warning you or something like that.
Yeah. So you're spot on about that. I can tell you encounter after encounter. I've had, small pebbles thrown out in front of me. I was with a woman once. We were doing something. She was talking to them, and I think there's some juveniles around. She'd say something to the woods, and out of the woods, all of a sudden, these small pebbles fall right in front of us. Went on for a while. I've had acorns being thrown at me, and they're coming out sideways. I've had, rocks thrown over the top of my park pickup truck, dark in the woods. You can hear it going through. You can hear it going sideways through the trees, that kind of thing. So it's a planned trajectory, and they know what they're doing. They may use rocks to kill prey if they want to. I don't know, but they're pretty good at what they do. I've had big rocks come out of the woods. A huge log thrown out of the woods once. Being an investigator from Detroit, we're in the Smokies a couple of years ago, and we had people deployed a couple of 100 yards apart. We're on walkies talking. We all had activities, so they were in 3 different spots. I was in the elbow, the middle spot, and I think they just got frustrated that we're all out there deployed, and such and knew they were there. Sometimes they get mad because they know they're there, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, this massive, just huge tree log thing comes flying out of the woods. And, right in the grass about 20 yards from us, we just bang. And they'll get your attention.
Yeah.
I looked at this other messenger, Kevin. I'm like, what the, So I start, if that's so sad, I talk to him. All right, calm down. We don't mean any harm. We know you're there. We're not, we're just out here in the woods because we're curious about you, and we don't mean, we're not going to be here all night. We're just out here to experience you. That's all. Relax, because sometimes that gets your attention, and if they want you out of there, you got. And if it keeps up, if they are pushing trees over and stomping on the ground, they'll pound on it. You'll hear like thud thud. Or they'll stomp on the ground. You can hear that, or sometimes they're jumping out of a tree. But if it gets agitated on their side, they're uncomfortable. You got to get out of there. You just got to leave. But if they happen to be around and they want to interact, and you do a knock and they do a knock back, and it's the same. One of the tests I always do is not just, I'm not knocking out there like, going crazy, more cowbell. Right? If I do a knock and they respond, or they do one, and I usually wait for them. But if they knock and I knock, and they knock and I knock, and they do a soft one, I do a soft one, they do a loud one, I do a loud one, kind of thing. Then I know I got dialogue. You got language, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind. It's it's when they're knocking like crazy or they're shaking trees and stuff. Then they're not happy with you. You got to go.
Yeah, suppose I think most people estimate 600 to 800 pounds for the big ones, or bigger, smaller. I don't know, but if they're getting that agitated, it's time to go. I mean, even if it was a bear of that size getting agitated, It's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
Let alone a very intelligent creature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You say people talk to them and talk into the woods. You even talk into the woods. Do you think they kind of have an understanding of what your intentions are when you speak to them?
So that's good. That's a good question, Jay. So I think they understand intent.
Yeah.
I firmly believe they understand intent.
Mm-hmm.
We always say if you're out in the woods, act like a hiker, not like a hunter. We're not carrying guns over our shoulder when we do this. We're not, pulling one out and pointing every dirt, that clearly they would understand. So we don't do anything like that over. We're not trying to trick them. I use tech if I'm out there. FLIR is good. I'll use some of that from time to time and scan, and I've gotten images sometimes. They can see IR. So if you use night vision with IR, there's no question they pick that up.
Mm.
So a little bit of tech is okay. Parabolic microphone, listening, I like those, especially if there's not a lot of wind. You can listen and you can hear bipedal footsteps going through the woods, sort of thing. I love those.
Wow.
And you can get a parabolic mic and headphone set for $40 on Amazon, and it's worth its weight in gold when you're out there. So, I try to, if they're there, interact with them, but you don't want to. I can't say this enough. Don't want to try to trick these things. They're an apex predator. They're getting around the woods, and they're never one of them. They're always in groups. So people need to get that through their head too. They're not solo creatures. They're in family units, and I'm speaking from experience. You got to pay attention when you're out there. If you're a whistle in one area and then there's a whistle in another, they're talking to each other. If you hear knocks and they resonate, bang, and they're from 3 different spots, you got 3 of them around. They're all they're bouncing things off each other to let people know, or to let each other know, not to let people know. They're not knocking for our benefit. So I think they understand intent. You can talk to them, and if they don't, I know some folks that say they think they, understand the language. Janice Carter, if you read the 50 Years of Bigfoot in Tennessee, they got all the Bigfoot language detailed in there. I've been on expeditions and talked with Janice Carter about this. She says they understand English language. I don't know. I'm not here to tell you that. It's a data point to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I think they understand intent. I think they understand, your tone when you're talking in the woods too. And if you're calm and reasonable, I think, they can be too. But there's good people and there's bad people, So why isn't there could be good Sasquatch and bad Sasquatch too?
Awesome. You have any more questions about his stuff out there? Or I've been itching to talk about the book.
Yeah, I know. I want to get to the book too. Let's go to the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got this amazing guide. I got one. I'm going to get one the next. I'm going to get at least 3 of them next time I see you to give away on the show. We love giving away stuff on the show. So I got to. But I just think it's, you watch so many YouTube videos of quote unquote researchers, and every stick that touches every other stick is a Bigfoot thing. Like we did a fun video a long time ago in Hocking where we're like, oh, we stopped at a parking lot. We're like, there's a Bigfoot structure. There's a Bigfoot,
Yeah.
But this guide's amazing. So could you please just educate us?
Sure. So, first of all, if I'm glad to send you some of these. So just send me an email afterwards. Remind me. I'll get a few off in the mail to you. And you can get them. Our listeners, they want multiples. They get them on at our Etsy store. We've got them. What I tried to do with this is say, to split them up and talk about. There's a whole section around questions. So this is not a guide that's telling you this is what they are and it's definitive everything. But I even got some glyphs in the back, which are things that they'll leave on the ground a lot of times. But there are similarities in these, and you got to be careful. Not everything out there is a stick structure that a Bigfoot put together. Some of it is, I'll give you, natural explanations. Snow load, you're in Ohio. Snow can weigh down trees, especially things like pine trees. Pine trees bend every which way, get uprooted. So that's a good reason for why things are bent over awkwardly in the woods. Tropisms. So I talk about that a little here. There's geotropisms, hydro. So trees, vegetation will grow towards the sun. They'll grow with, gravity will pull it down. The geotropism means gravity's pulling them down. If they're on in a ravine or something, they're going to grow downward. They'll try to grow towards water. So you see that. So you got to kind of debunk and go through all that. The hunters will use trees and bend them over to mark paths. Animals will mark things and paths that they frequent. So a lot of reasons why things get bent over. What I'm talking about is when you see something in the woods that can't really be explained. I'll give you here's a good picture that's in the book. It's one actually Scott Carpenter. If you read his books, he gave me this one, which I like. But there's really nothing else that could explain that.
Yeah,
in the woods.
That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I love that one. And Scott, I said, Scott, I put it in my book. And he was actually talking about this the other day. I got one of mine underneath it, and me standing under it for scale. But, when you have something that really can't be done any other way, to me, that's valuable. And then there are definite similarities. And one of the ones that I talk about in here is the asterisk. Well, they'll do X's in the woods too. People say, the X, well, the X means you don't go that way. And we put superimpose our own meaning on it. That I don't know that that's what that means. I think these things have meaning that correlates a lot with Native American culture and symbols, if you will. But I like the asterisk. There's a buddy of mine up in Wisconsin. This is from an area in the Ice Age Trail, but I'll put this in there. But you can see that if you take a look at this one here, he's on the top. It's a good one because he's standing behind it, and that's an asterisk. Mm-hmm. Now, that's an area I've been with him, but he had repeat ongoing activity. And he was even gifting and leaving things at the center of that. So I grab a prop here. I brought props for the show. See Justin and Jay, just for you guys. But I use these when I talk a lot. But when you see symmetry with one of these things, when they're, it's not all random. In other words, the parts that are in the asterisk or the X are typically similar in size. So they'll strip the bark and the sticks, that are growing out of they'll strip that off the sides. So the members that are in the X, this is just held up together a rubber band, are typically the same size, which is amazing to me all the time. So they're spending time in the woods finding sticks, and these can be really elaborate and large at times, but they're finding things that are the same size. So the members of the X or the members of the asterisk, if it's an asterisk, and you get multiples like this, typically they're the same size. So I think these things are built not singularly, but by groups, and they are engineered. And there's some symmetry a lot of times. So the sticks are the same. They're balanced from the focal point, particularly in in an estrus. So, what's on one side and what's on the other are equivalent. So they spend some time in doing it. There is some elaboration in what goes on in this, and that's the things that you should look for. I'd say number one, rule out anything, debunk anything that could be natural. Was it a microburst, a storm that went through? You'll see tons of things in an area when that happens. Downburst of wind. If there's none of that around there and this stands out uniquely, and all of a sudden you come upon this, it's in the woods. Well, then you go to the next level. Look for things like I said, where all the members of the stick structure are the same size. Look for all the bark stripped off, all the side branches stripped off. And then look for what holds it in place. I mean, they will use rocks or logs to hold some of these things in place, and they could be rather large. They'll put these things, they'll build X's and put them right where a tree bifurcates and goes up every side, and all of a sudden you'll see these things like an elevated X up in the air in the middle of a tree where a tree has a Y formation. And you look at it, you go, there's no way that stuff just randomly fell in there. How did that get done? And so you have to take it to the next level and look for things like, have the members of the stick structure been physically tampered with, bark removed? Are they all the same size, the members of that? Is it in a place where sometimes, like in the estrus, which I really like that one, the middle member, the things that are in the very center of it, you'll see like one in the middle, it's floating. It'll be like floating in there from side to side. So the other ones hold it up. It's like playing pixie sticks or pickup sticks or something. And the one in the middle is just randomly floating like it's balanced. That happens a lot with these things too. So you got to look for some engineering in it. And if you see that, rule out humans, of course, but if you see that kind of thing and you look at it, well, you might have a Bigfoot stick structure. Another thing that's fascinating is, I would always say to people too, like I showed in the picture here, get some scale. Get somebody standing, if you see this standing, get some scale as to how big it is or how elaborate, as much as you can. But some of these things really do stand out. And when you see one, you might see others. In the book, as you look in here, I got pictures of some of them taking red headlamps at night. And I got other ones that show, and, you see here, like, you can see what I was talking about. There'll be like a isosceles triangle in the middle or one balanced in the middle. That's done with a purpose. But they're building these things. Again, I think there's multiple Bigfoots working to do this. And then you always want to look, hoops are another one that I like that you see out there. Here's a picture of a buddy of mine, Mark Ogilvy. I go on a lot of expeditions with him. He's from Columbus. He's Ohio guy.
Oh, wow.
But that's just him and I. We're on, I got lots like this. But he's standing there he's giving perspective. Now that hoop that he's standing on was bent over, and you see the root side from his right as he's standing. That's where it comes out of the ground. And then on the other side, the point is stuck in the ground. So they'll stick that, they bend it over, and they'll stick one right into the ground. You find it's, pointed, stuck in the ground a foot, 6 inches or a foot. Well, nature's pretty much not going to do that.
It would take very special conditions to bend that tree and stick it a foot in the ground.
So that's the kind of thing I'm always looking for when I'm out there. The book talks a lot about that. Look for things that make it out of the ordinary. What do they all mean? I don't know. But there's continuity in the designs. That's what, to me, is fascinating about that. You'll see a lot of the same things out there. And, I don't know why that is or what it is. Some of them are, I think, so here's one, I've got some images of this in the book too, but a lot of times they'll strip these things. They look like walking sticks. They'll take all the bark off and they'll lean half a dozen of these into the, where a tree bifurcates and goes up. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to guess. I think it has something to do with there's 6 of us that live here, or there's 4 of us in this area. But, well, you say, how do you know that, Rick? Bigfoots, can they count? Well, I'm here to tell you they can count. So, I've experienced that enough with knocks and things out in the woods. I do think they can count. And I think they will communicate back and forth with each other in numbers. So why wouldn't they put a number of sticks together to represent how many of them are in an area? So a lot of it's speculative and questions, but I'm not trying to be an authority. I'm just trying to ask. And I think, Cliff Barrickman and I had talked about this a lot. We always have good debates on it. But he said to me once, it's an underserved area of Bigfooting. And I think it is. So I'm trying to just, maybe show people the similarities, ask questions about why it's done, talk about it, and then acknowledge that these things are out there. Now you come upon, you're out in the woods and you come upon something like this, or something like that on the bottom. There's a couple of them there on the bottom. If you can rule out Boy Scouts and hunters make it a blind to hunt, I'm pretty sure nature's not just doing that on its own.
A lot of intelligent design in that.
Yeah. So, more questions than answers, but again, I'm trying to catalog, put it together, and it's fun. People buy these a lot of times from me at the shows. And, I took it with me. People come in and say, I wanted to get another one. I've taken that with me. I found some, and they did match up. And, so if it educates people a little bit on it, that's great.
It is awesome. Definitely. It's definitely worth it.
I agree too. And
send me an email. I'll send you a few.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. And I read a story about someone seeing these structures on their property. They see that they call them like little A-frame structures, then the X structures, and the asterisk structures. All three of them were there. And they brought in like this medium lady, and and they didn't tell her what was going on the property, and she didn't want to know until she was already there. And she was drawn to one of the actual structures that was there. And she said she thought it might have been like an area where they were like kind of like a portal type of area where they were coming in and out of. I didn't know if anyone had an experience like that on any of your expeditions.
Who knows?
Right.
So who knows? So there may be a mystic or otherworldly paranormal quality to these things. I don't know. I appreciate you relating the story, Jay. I don't know. I can't, I get witness reports that I was looking at right at one of these things and then it was gone. More than once I run into that. Yeah, I don't understand. I can't figure that out. Do they run through a portal? I don't know. You have to get somebody who really understands portals to explain that, and I don't know that.
I don't even know.
I don't think anybody
does.
does.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Yeah. So, I don't know, but it's fascinating that, you had somebody on property where these things were and they picked up some other vibes. That's possible. I've been on expeditions where we brought along medium type people. And I'll tell you real quick, I was on one and a few times we've done this just to see, and they do pick up some communications and vibes. It's weird. I was with a group in Iowa back an expedition. I want to say it was maybe 2014 or 15, and we're at a place. And first night of any expedition, we'll get together, and we usually, have something we stand in a group, talk about the expedition, and we do introductions. And we had the guy who organized it. He brought a medium in. She's standing there, kind of looking around and listening. All of a sudden, she speaks up and she said, in the middle of the introductions of our group, and she, they're here. They know you're here. They're watching right now. They know you're here. They want to know why you're going out in the forest. They want to know. Of course, we all look at her like she's nuts, And it had been raining, as I recall it. And right after she says this, because we were in, a state park area, and we were under a pavilion, because like I said, gravity. And right after she says this, maybe 70 yards away, a tree gets pushed down. And I mean, a big tree. And we all see it because it's right on the edge of the woods. And we see this tree just come crashing down. So, like bees on honey, we got to go see it. So, we come run out of the pavilion and got our ponchos on there. We're going to go see it. And we get over there. We had to go around a drive over and around a creek area. And we get over there and we find 17-inch footprint. So, it happened. We all saw it. The medium picked up on something. I don't know, but it happened. Cause effect. At the same time, she said, "They know you're here," etc. Now, there are a lot of other things that went on in this expedition. That one's stuck in my head relative to the whole concept of a medium. So, Jay, I'm glad you brought that up because I haven't talked about that story in a while. But it really happened and multiple people saw it. So again, anytime I'm, experiencing this, I always look, did multiple people have the same experience? Was there evidence left? And in this case, sure. Multiple people saw the same thing and we saw it cast a big footprint. And we had a tree pushed over.
Awesome. There's so much to this that's just on the other side of stuff.
Yeah.
I fault, because I come from a biology background, so that's where my brain goes most of the time. But there's so much of this that I 100% believe happens that's not in that realm of it's extra, it's more, and it's
not explainable
right.
in a biology sense.
And that's why I don't need to go find one.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask though, if you would ever, so hopping back to kind of some structure stuff, if you'd ever seen anything incorporated with like big rocks or anything like that.
Yeah. So I think the glyphs, they will do that. So they have a tendency of, when I say glyphs, what I mean by that is it's a ground arrangement, sticks and or rocks.
Okay.
And so I started to include some of them in my in the book that I'll just show a picture one real quick. This is an X type because they fall into some categories too. And there's one on the ground you can see. And I've got some others here, but these are where they're laying these things out. There's a triangle. They're laying these things on the ground. I think it has something to do with communication, and I don't know why, but there's a triangle type, there's an X type. But you look at it and you say, well, it did just fall out of a tree that way. And again, the same sort of thing. They're going to peel bark off the sides, and they twist and bend, the pieces that are in the arrangement. There's one that they do, to answer your question, it's kind of like an F shape.
Yeah.
And they'll put rocks up in the mouth of the F. I've seen that over and over. I got a guy in Tennessee's got these things at his property, habituation situation, and I'm there all the time. And he's gotten that many times where they leave like this F shape in the ground, and they put rocks right in the mouth of the F. So they will use rocks in the arrangement. Is the answer? It's a long answer, but yes, they will.
Awesome. Because I think when we started this a while ago, Hocking Hills had one that had do you remember? It was like a 200, 300-pound rock in a tree, in like the crook of a tree.
Unbelievable.
And I remember we had pictures of it for a long time because it was just. And Hocking Hills does have the cliffs and stuff like that, but this was not near any cliffs or anything like that. It was just. It was like if there was 8 of us and we were really drunk, and we really wanted to put that rock up there. I guess we could, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
To get that big of a rock up into that nook of a tree. It's like 8-9 foot up. So it's, it's not impossible. Humans did it.
But it's not likely.
But it would take a lot of work. Like Bigfoot is the easier answer than imagining all these guys running around Hocking Hills State Park trying to put a 200-300-pound rock 9 foot into the air.
Right. Well, right. And that's the right way to look at it. You want to say to yourself, what other explanation is there? When you start going through the checklist and ruling things out, but they'll do those kinds of things which are crazy, and they can do it. Why would they do it? Well, they can. If you're 8 foot tall and 600-800 pounds, you could do it. Maybe you do. And one of the ones when I saw in Virginia, out in the mountains of Virginia, right up the Appalachians, I was on an expedition years ago. And 5 of us, 3 of us saw the darn thing coming down a ravine. I told the story before, but we went back and scaled the next day, put the tallest guy we had up in that ravine, and tried to get to it. Came away thinking this thing was 900 pounds, and if it wasn't 900 or 1,000 pounds, I don't know what. I woke up the next day, and all I could see in my mind was this black creature that was so big and so fast that just the scale of it and how fast it could be for that big just shocked me. So put a big rock up in a tree. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Super. I mean, that wouldn't be much of a workout for one of them. I don't know. I kind of have a random question for you. I don't know why it just popped in my head. But what do you kind of think are their top outs for size estimates? And I know we're all speculating. Nobody really knows how big they can get. I know the one I seen was probably about 7.5 foot tall. And I do not believe he was full grown whatsoever. But
right.
Yes, me and Jay argue about this a lot.
We do.
Well, don't argue it. Yeah.
Be fun arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good question. I appreciate that. So let me give you a little bit of perspective on it. So the further you get from the equator, the larger animals are. Okay, that's something we know. The reports up in Alaska, northern Canada, these things being well beyond 10 foot tall. 10, 11, 12 foot. You hear that all the time up there. Some of the tree structures up there, I still want to see one of these, where they'll take a tree upside down, stuff it in the ground, so the root ball's up in the air. I've seen that on a smaller scale, but some of the pictures I've seen from up there are shocking. The point is, they got to be awful big to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was on an expedition in northern Wisconsin years ago, and the group saw a 4 foot tall one run through the group. I think I'm finding Bigfoot. They went back, recreated it, and they talked about it. So it was a juvenile. It was black, 4 foot, ran right through a group. We were out. I had led one group one night. The other group that was being led, they had called us, and they saw this thing. And I was on an expedition a few years ago, also about 2 years ago, in north central Tennessee, and we had people deployed all over a mountain, half mile apart. Walkie though, we were on walkies and things. The one group, which was led by an ex-military guy, they saw 3 of them, and the tallest one they said was about 14 foot.
Wow.
Dang.
Now, when I asked them, how do you know that, they said it was taller than the top of a basketball hoop.
Oh, okay.
They saw it.
Yeah.
2 of the others they saw, one was peeking out of the woods as they came in, and another one as they were running out of this area because they were scared, called Mayday, and we all had to go get them. But they were, the other 2 they said one was about 10 foot and the other was 11 or 12. So the smallest one they claimed to have seen was 10 foot. Now, multiple people, same time, saw them, level-headed. As I said, one guy's military, Middle East, he's been through a lot. 14 foot, right away there's a whole school of Bigfoot people out there going to say, that's impossible, no way, and physically, blah, blah, blah. I've seen castings of footprints 21, 22 inches. Tom Shea in Kentucky casts them all the time. He's got all kinds of casts. He's got one that I think he calls it Goliath or something.
set, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've seen that, 22, 23, whatever that is. I was up near Whitehall, New York, a couple of years ago. There's a guy up there who does a lot of research, and you know about that. You've heard about Whitehall and Bear Road and all that. Well, this guy up there on West Mountain, and I grew up in that part of the world, so I know. He showed me casts that were 22, 23 inches long. If you do the calculations, those things are huge. Whatever's putting that footprint in the ground, it's got to be over 10 foot.
Mm-hmm.
We did an episode explaining the incremental weight gain per inch, how it gets once you get over 10 foot, and that I think we based it off of grizzly bears, just 'cause that's our closest analog to roughly, how they operate. But like 3 inches can gain 100 pounds when you're over 10 foot tall. It just gets so much heavier so quick. It's 14 foot. That is a true
Big
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Who am I to say they didn't see that?
Right.
I do know that, we heard them. We heard the screams that night from these things in the woods. Probably 15 people heard it. When I got in there, you could hear them paralleling us on the way out. These guys looked like they were scared to death. They were running out of the woods. They dropped to their knees on the way out. They were so scared. So there were a lot of other things that corroborated with that night. Maybe they did see them that way.
Oh.
Who am I? I saw. I had an area. I was doing some research, and I used to bring apples in and put them up in spots and trees and everything. I was coming out of doing some research. Looked back down the trail. I was coming out and happened to see this thing. Back 75, 80 yards, and it kind of came down the woods and went up toward the area I left stuff. But again, like the other guys that reported, it was like 4 foot tall, and it was dark black. And as it ran by, I just saw this black small things, bipedal, just scurrying along on 2 legs, not on 4.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't prepared to look for it. I didn't know what I was seeing, and it kind of phased out. So now you see them, now you don't. So, how big can they be? How small can they be? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Weird stuff happens around this, but if you get off your couch and you get out in the woods and you try to stay open-minded, maybe experience some of this stuff.
That's definitely one question that's not brought up enough is how small they can be.
I think they can be pretty small. Who were we talking to in Cincinnati? Was it Mark and Jen?
Mark, yeah, it was saying that they saw like a 4 foot,
3 foot,
3 foot, yeah.
They thought they saw a puck wedgie, which is a kind of a different thing here in Ohio. But there's that chance it was a really small Bigfoot. was getting into their garden and stuff like that.
That's great. That's awesome.
But to say
Well, that brings up a good point. They're opportunistic eaters, and why wouldn't they? If they get in a garden, I had a witness report a couple of years ago. They were in an herb garden routinely. The woman that was growing it, she'd look out there and see the darn thing standing in their garden in the morning. So, why wouldn't they? And why wouldn't they send the kids, to your point, the little ones down, get in the garden and get something to eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to get caught. I'm 10 foot tall. I can't walk through that yard and not get seen. You're 3 foot tall.
Right.
But for everybody at home, like you were saying, there's a big part of the Bigfoot community that's, when they get over 10 or whatever feet, they're like, they can't physically be that big. Short-faced bears, I know they were quadrupeds that walked on 4 legs, but when they stood up, sometimes they hit 19 feet tall and they could walk. So mammals get that big. Gigantopithecus would have been 16, 17 foot tall if it was standing on its hind legs. Mammals, and I do believe personally that these are relics from the last ice age. Mammals got really big. These guys are just survivors. They're big. But that's just my little PSA. The mammals specifically, do get that big and do walk on two legs. It happened. We know it. So, but there is a big part of the Bigfoot community. It's just like, no, it can't be.
Well, you got to be careful. It brings up a good point, both you guys, Justin, Jay. I mean, stay open-minded,
Yeah.
And to your point, there's evidence of mammals that can get that big, leftovers, who knows. There's skeletons that have been, pulled out of the ground, found, exhumed, all this sort of thing in Greece and Eastern Europe that are well over 30 foot tall. So if you read any of the books of giants in America, they're fascinated, read all that stuff. I mean, back when we were an agrarian society and they were going through the mounds, a lot of them were plowed over for making fields agricultural, but they found giants and skeletons of giants that, well over 10 foot. So who knows? I mean, who knows what they are, You said, Jess, you said you've seen it. I know it's real. I know they're real. I don't know everything about them. But I know they're out there, and I lean towards, we talk about size, we didn't talk about population. I just had this debate with another guy in South Carolina, investigator, yesterday. He thinks there's not as many, and I'm like, no, I think there's lots of them. So I was on the phone an hour with somebody about this yesterday. I think there's lots of these.
How many? Do you have a rough idea how many you think are like the continental U.S., as in Canada, U.S.?
So I've heard from intelligent people have done a lot of this. I talked to Moneymaker about it. Thousands, they think. I know an accredited anthropologist who thinks there's, a couple million of them in North America. I know folks that'll say hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. How many Native Americans were there running around North America? Native Americans traded with these things. They all got a name for them.
Mm-hmm.
Every Native American group or tribe has got a name for this thing. They interact with them regularly. Why can't there be lots of them? There's an awful lot of forest out there that we don't know anything about.
I definitely think there's more than people think, but I know you keep looking over at me because you want me to tell that story.
The caloritician, yeah.
Yeah.
Just give them the quick version.
I'll give you the quick. So
Sure.
I was a fishery biologist, but our company I worked for had all kinds of stuff. We did surveys. We did pretty much anything you could do for environmental science, we did. We were talking about Bigfoot in the shop, and this guy's his job title is basically it's a caloritician, but not like the one you go to the health doctor for. This is the guy that goes into an environment and decides how many available calories are in that habitat and what animals should be there based on the available calories. So we were talking about Bigfoot in the shop. He came in and he's like, but Bigfoot's a whole bunch of bull crap. Then he went back into the lab. Didn't talk to this guy. I never see this guy like when I worked, because I never see this guy because when I worked in the field and he was a lab guy. So we just, we didn't see each other. We weren't doing the same jobs. Like 3 weeks pass. He comes by and he gives me a stack of papers, and I still have them. I just haven't unpacked them yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, here's how many could exist in the continental U.S. if each adult's roughly 2 to 3 times the size of a black bear with a similar diet. And on the low end, he had it estimated at 10,000. On the high end, he had it estimated at 45,000. And then I put my finger right between the 15 to 20,000 mark. I think these guys have, personally, my opinions, they have really big home ranges. So one family could be occupying a very good chunk of land But yeah, so yeah, he's a guy that didn't believe in. He apparently didn't believe in Bigfoot, but did all this, a lot of work. He put a lot of effort into this study. Like, if you were to try to get him to do that from that company, it'd be like probably 50 or 60 grand.
Really?
Yeah.
But I have it.
I'd love to read it or any part of it. I'd like to look at any of that. And, good for him for saying it's plausible and there could be lots of. Again, you're saying tens of thousands. Who would have thought? It could be. Here's where I wind up with it. We're a bunch of amateur researchers. And even not even a bunch. There's a handful of us. We go around out in the woods and have these expeditions and routinely have encounters with these things. Not because we have imaginations run wild or groupthink guiding that, because we actually cast footprints, have interactions, record them howling, making whoop noises, knocking, get paralleled by them in the woods, see their footprints, interact with them by leaving things, and then they take and move them. They come into campgrounds. I mean, who the heck are we? And we have routine interaction with them. What do we think? It's all the same small group of them? I mean, it happens is what I'm saying. So, how would I explain that except by numbers, that there's lots of them in lots of different places?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully believe that there are more than people can think. And I don't know what you have found, but I think people kind of get this idea with Sasquatch that they exist out west and they exist in the pine barrens and they exist. Mm-hmm. I fully believe they exist right up next to towns, right up next to city. They live just where the asphalt ends, and sometimes they cross.
Yeah. Well, that's well said. I'm going to use that phrase. That's
go right ahead.
Where the asphalt. That's great. I've had reports of them close to towns, and then you look and you find there's a greenway up to that part of town that goes miles out into the woods. And why wouldn't they? Again, I think they're omnivores. If you want to talk biology, I think they're opportunistic eaters and adapt. And whatever they can access, they dumpster dive. They get into crops. They get into outbuildings. We get reports on this stuff all the time. So, why wouldn't they? Now, they got a good ability to stay stealth. They can make any kind of noise, mimic anything, and distract you or make you feel uncomfortable. We covered that. So, and why not? Why wouldn't there be? People run into these things. Hunters, campers, us as researchers, military bases, law enforcement, they see them crossing roads. I mean, it goes on all the time. So who knows? And do we think it's the same ones? No, you're just scraping the edge of the population. And why would there be a bunch of them?
I'm glad you brought up diet, because that's something we kind of talk about too. People, I hear that so many times from people that kind of get this, that aren't really into Bigfoot or into the field of research, and say there's just not enough food for them. People don't understand what bears eat. So black bears are in Michigan. I actually know the guy that did the study. Their diet consists 60% plant-based, 40% protein-based. But the 30% of that, so 30% of the 100% of the protein side of it comes from almost exclusively frogs. So these black bears will walk down creeks. 30% of their diet is almost exclusively amphibians. And they'll just eat frogs all day because it's easier to catch 50 crazy frogs than to catch a deer.
Yeah.
Not saying they can't kill that deer or they can't kill, it's just the calorie benefits. If I can, I'm not going to go like Bigfoot. I fully believe in kill an elk. But there's a lot of cost benefit, weighing you got to do. It's a lot easier to go catch frogs. It's, that food is highly available and highly replenishes itself.
Yes.
I get a little stutter every once in a while. You can't tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I think people really get that false idea that these things are just mowing on deer every day.
Right. And you get reports too, and I read a few of these of them, being in a stream or a riverbed and then opening mollusks and eating them and that sort of thing. So whatever's plentiful, they're going to adapt, right? I mean, they're going to eat that thing, whatever they need to get through the climate and everything. If they need protein, they're going to get that. They're going to eat corn in cornfields. I'll say this. We could talk about this too. I do think they will establish a cache of what they need out in the woods. Why wouldn't they work as a group? And why wouldn't they have it store things that they gather up and then gather together at the end of the day and eat, or why wouldn't they? They work as a team, work as a unit, and I think if they can gather up stuff to eat, they come upon a bunch of stuff in an outbuilding on a farm or something that's edible, they're going to take it all and get a bunch of them together and take it away and get to a spot where they can all gather and eat. Why wouldn't they? So again, if you have a unit of them, and I agree with you also, it could be across vast lands, it could be across a lot of acreage. Why wouldn't they all work as a group? Sure. I
fully believe they do.
Mm-hmm.
One final thing before, because I know I've already kept you over an hour.
That's fine.
This has been so good already, but I would just kind of want to get your opinion on gifting, because I know I have opinions on it, and I think it's a very dangerous. Personally, I think it's a very dangerous thing to do because of a story we know that happened very close to us, where a lady thought, an old farmer in Cincinnati, Ohio. This older couple, they were very, very wealthy, lived out in the suburbs. They had all these big barns, all vast, like 200-300 acres, but they had all these big barns. On the very last barn, they thought teenagers had taken up like a home there, like they ran away from home and stuff like that, because she could kind of see them moving in the barn and stuff like that. So she's like, okay, these poor. So they started buying pizza every day and leaving pizza at that barn for what she thought were teenagers.
Oh boy.
And then they went on vacation. They did this for months. Then they went on vacation, and everything was destroyed. I mean, just plants ripped out of the garden, windows broken in the house, but there's all these big footprints. The police didn't really want to deal with it. The insurance took care of it. She ended up getting, I cannot remember what investigator it was. I cannot remember for the life of me who she got. But it's like, yeah, they got really, most likely they were used to you feeding them 2 or 3 pizzas every night.
Yeah.
And when that stopped, they got very agitated.
Yep.
So that's my
investigator there. Yeah. Maybe B. Was it B Mills?
I don't know. I'll ask B, because we.
Yeah, she would know.
Yeah, we're doing. We're speaking at one of her events in the fall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know she does some Hocking Hills.
It may be.
She's a great. Yeah, she's a great investigator. I've been out at some stuff with her. It could be or Mark. Maybe one of those guys. All right. So yeah, great story. Thank you for sharing that. So here's my 2 cents on that, on the question. I would never create a dependency, especially if it's on your property. So if you have them around your property, if you have a big piece of property and they're around, or you suspect they're around, I've heard stories of leaving cake, pancakes, pizza's a new one, but leaving all this stuff out. And if you create a dependency and they depend on it, they don't, they're great observers. They're going to watch. They're going to take advantage of it. So what does that mean? I don't think it ever ends up good. And in the case you're talking about where they destroyed as much stuff, all of a sudden there was no nourishment there, and they, like a bunch of little kids, little brats, they got pissed off, start breaking things and tearing things up. That's what they're going to do. So don't ever create a dependency. You have a spot. I used to have an area I would gift and leave apples and things, but it was miles away from me out in the woods. And I went to a spot, and about once a week I'd go in and they'd take the stuff. I could tell you stories about that too. But they would take, they'd take the apples. Sometimes they'd leave some things back for me. You'd see an X or sticks that were left in its place. And so they would, you can get a little bit of that going on with them, but I would never do it at home and not create an ongoing, leave a pizza every day or for that's not, and, how are they going to react eating, refined sugars and starches and junk, right? And so you don't know that either. So I don't like any of that. I have a guy who's got him on his property, and he's got a shooting range in the woods down at his property for years. He interacts. Once in a while, he leaves some apples or pears, but he's got toys and things there, and he'll move them, and they move them, and he moves them, and they move them, and it's like an ongoing everyday thing. And you see similarities in what they're doing. We got mountains of data. I don't know what to do with it, but I've learned a ton from these things. They will. What they see as order, what they move, isn't necessarily what we see as order. But they will do the same thing. 3 and 1, they'll leave things, move things, take only certain things. Like they don't know what to do with citrus, but they'll take the apples. So it's fascinating. But you just got to be careful. We don't know what these things are, what they do, and if you create an ongoing dependency and remove it and they get mad, that isn't good. If you make them mad and you don't know what you're doing to make them mad, that's not good. I always say be careful. Going out in the woods and screaming and howling. What the heck are you saying to these things?
Right.
So you just got to be careful around it. Always be an observer. Don't be an intruder. And be careful. So to answer your question on the whole gifting thing, not the biggest fan. A little bit of interaction here and there. Like I said, if you have an area going to the woods or stick structure, you want to leave something, compact disc or something blue that they don't see, and then you come back and it's gone, and they leave something. All right, fine. If it's not a regular thing, it's just all right, that's fine. Keep it at arm's length. Be careful, but don't do it on your property.
Yeah. We go up to Michigan a lot. I have a cabin up there, and on some of the Michigan Bigfoot pages, you see people always are like, I leave apples out every day for our Bigfoot, and I feel like it's probably a bear, but when you stop leaving the apples out, you can have. But yeah, the other, I guess what you were saying, like the trading or that kind of stuff is a little, I guess in my mind, different. I probably used the wrong term. It's on me, but what I think, don't gift as in give all that frickin' food to them. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's like you're saying, we don't know anything about them. I mean, the amount we do know is very small compared to what there is. You don't know what you're doing to these things.
You got to be careful. I mean, it's all evidence. I look at it that way. It's all evidence, but don't generalize, make assumptions, and try to predict behavior. You got to be careful with these things.
That's awesome. Well, Rick, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We've greatly appreciated it. I would like you to take this time again and do all your shout-outs again, and I will have all the links in the description below for everybody at home. Please support Rick in any way you can. And are you speaking at any conferences this year yet, do you know of, or what ones you're going to be vending?
Yeah, so we'll be, IKnowSquatch. Again, we're on any place you look through your social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, etc. Have an Etsy store for our merchandise. A lot of hats, T-shirts, stickers. We have state stickers too, but we do all original artwork. Check us out. We'll be at a number of different shows this year. We're doing one in Hamlet, North Carolina at CounterQuest. That's, I think, the first one, beginning of April. We'll be at that. We're going to do Ocala. We'll be down in Florida for that one. Some others we've done other years, Gatlinburg, etc. I'm speaking at one in Marion, North Carolina. That's huge. And I'll be speaking at BFRO up in Virginia, also in June. So I'm speaking at a couple of them this year. Also, I try to do that on different things, like how to run an expedition or stick structures and things. I'll talk about that. I try to, like we did today, answer questions, talk about this theoretical as opposed to just tell a half-hour story kind of thing. So if you want that, go to Sasquatch Chronicles. So I don't mean to plug anybody else, but
that's all good.
Stories are good, and I think all that's good. But I like what you guys are doing here, which is you're covering a lot of different aspects of this subject, and that's really good. That's your biology background. Don't like that. But I mean, it's good. We covered an awful lot of stuff today.
Oh yeah.
And then I also, as I said, I'll be leading expeditions. One in Eastern Tennessee in April with BFRO, and I'll probably do one in the fall too. I haven't decided exactly where. I'm doing some scouting on that. So be active with that, and look up Wood Booger Walk on Spotify or iTunes. Anywhere you listen to music, check out Just Rick, and give me a like if you or follow me. I put different songs out usually 3-4 times a year, and I perform. I do gigs. I'm out playing music on weekends and stuff too. So
that's awesome.
About doing my thing. So, but you guys are doing some good things with this podcast. I've listened to some of yours. I like their variety of subject matter, and I appreciate you giving me an audience to talk about this subject. I've got stacks of stuff together for a book, but I like doing some of these podcasts to talk about this because it's the best way to communicate these days with people about this subject matter, and so you're doing a good thing. You're doing a good thing, staying open-minded and getting this out there so people can listen and love the subject.
Thank you again, and thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right,
appreciate it.
We have a little tradition we do, and I didn't get a chance to tell you about it because I don't tell anybody about it. But at the end of the episode, sorry, glitch. At the end of the episode, we count down from 3, and we just yell bye to the audience. Just kind of something we do. So cool. As long as you're good with that, I'll count down from 3, and we'll do it.
I'm good. All righty.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Crypts of the Corn podcast.
Please share with a friend you think would like us. It's the best way to help our show grow.
Leave a comment, rate us, a 5-star review, and remember, there is always extra content on Patreon/cryptsofthecorn.com.
And don't forget, stay magical.
If you're looking to move out of your parents' place, you could really cut expenses by bundling your car and renter's insurance with Progressive, which is good because your little brother has gotten really territorial. You're blood related. You'd think it would be fine to share food in the fridge. I mean, who writes their name on every individually wrapped slice of cheese, Tyler? Still, you've got to admire the commitment. So bundle your renter's and car insurance with Progressive and use the savings to help you move out and have all the cheese you want. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.